All right, so I'm going to do a quick video just explaining how to use the body weight scale if you're trying to lose weight. Most people, you might be someone like this. You've gone through a diet program or some type of weight loss plan in the past, or maybe you are right now, and you feel frustrated with the scale when it doesn't go the way that you want to. There's an issue with just not understanding how the scale even works, how the body even works, how the scale works with the body, or just having poor expectations around that. So I'm going to explain a few things. First of all, most people think with the scale, they have this idea where they think scale down is good, scale up is bad. In general, that's kind of true, but it's mostly not true, just because we don't have enough information around that to make that assumption. But unfortunately, people do make that assumption. You see the scale spike 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days in a row, and you're like, this cannot be good. I don't know what to do about this. So first thing is just understanding how the scale even works in the first place. So the scale is going to basically, get rid of this, scale is going to, it's going to measure our total body weight, so not just fat. So the scale is going to measure things like water in our body, bones, although that doesn't change much, muscle, glycogen. This is kind of a function of water and a function of carbs, but carbs, fiber, food in general, hormonal fluctuations. So for women, that time of the month, menopause as well, stress, it's related to hormones as well. Movement will affect the scale, sweat rate, again, that's related to water, but these are just all kind of specifics. And then, of course, fat. Okay, so, the other thing that we would want to pay attention to as well that affects the scale, digestion. So when you think about it, most people, when they're focused on the scale number, they think it just means this. But you can see it encompasses a lot more than just fat. And I'm leaving some stuff out here, I'm sure I forgot. But these are kind of the main things that are going to affect the body weight scale. It's not just fat. So this is really, first of all, very important to understand. So when we see fluctuations with the scale, it's going up a little bit, going down a little bit, going up one day, down another day, up again, up again, up again. It's really important to understand that in the short term, the scale is going to be affected by all of these things. Now, the next thing to understand is actually, now that we know all of the things that are going to be incorporated into the scale number that we see, the next thing is to make sure we are actually using it correctly. So the first thing is weigh in first in the morning. Okay? And we want this to be, you could really weigh in anytime, but first thing in the morning is great just because it's right when you wake up. You're probably going to leave the house and you won't be around the scale. So first thing, wake up. That's when you want to do it. You don't do that because you're lightest. A lot of people think about it like that. But that doesn't matter when you weigh yourself. The point is that you weigh yourself the first or the same time each day and the same place. Okay? Because the goal there is really, we just want standardization. Okay? So it's got to be the same. So there's some level of standardization. If we weigh ourselves in the morning one day and then weigh ourselves in the afternoon the other day, and then we weigh again later at night, it's like none of that's really valuable because we can't, you're measuring apples to oranges there. We want to measure apples to apples, okay? So that's the first thing to understand. The next thing when it comes to actually how to use the scale is going to be how to measure the trends, okay? So as I said before, we're weighing in every single day. So that means, you know, if this is 1 week, we're going to weigh in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 times. Now, when we see that, we may end up, actually, I'll use this marker. We may see something like this. Okay? You may see something, I'll give you a few examples here. You may see something like this. And you may see something like this. Okay? All of those have resulted in weight loss. Now that's just a weekly trend. So the idea here is like that you see that peak, 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 peak. So all of those are moments where someone probably freaked out. But the key is to understand that in the short term, it doesn't matter because it's, again, all the lists that I gave at the start, those are all going to be affecting that. So if we are not on a regular poop schedule, Okay, that's going to affect digestion. It's going to affect how much food's in us. We ate more food than usual one night. We went out to a dinner. We ate dinner at 9 p.m. instead of our usual 5 p.m. So you woke up a little bit heavier. Maybe you didn't get as many steps or as much movement in for the last day or two. That's going to affect it as well. You're stressed out. That's going to affect it. Like I said, all of these things are going to affect it, and that's what's going to lead to the odd day having a spike. But as you can see, the downward trend on all of these is down. Every single one is moving down. And this is why the important thing to understand here is we weigh in every single day, but we pay attention to the weekly trend. So this would be 1 week, an example of 1 week. Now what I'm going to do is erase this. And that's the short term. Okay, so that's the day-to-day making up a total week. Then what happens is we have total weeks. Okay, so this is week 1, week 2, and week 3. And what you're going to want to do is pay attention to the trend of each one. What I like to do is just measure the lows compared to the last one. So again, I'll use an example here. So maybe, so if we have week 1, week 2, and week 3 here, maybe it looks something like this, right? So maybe the weigh-ins look something like that. Now we have week 1 here, week 2 here, week 3, right? So week 1, week 2, week 3. Now what you're going to want to do is compare all-time low here, all-time low here. That one matched an all-time low, and then it looks like we hit an all-time low there. So what you can basically do is you can kind of pay attention to that trend, and each one is going down relative to the last one. Okay, so I don't have any numbers here, but for example, someone's weighing here maybe 210.8. Maybe that was their all-time low for week 1. All-time low here, maybe been 28.1. All-time low on the week 3 could have been 206.5. Okay, and then what I do is I just take the difference. So we're down over 2 pounds here, almost 3 pounds. We're down another almost 2 pounds, 1.5 pounds there. So we lost, down 2 pounds here, down 1.5 pounds. So this is important, is zooming out and looking at the week-to-week trends, not the daily trends. The daily trend is great to look within the week, but at the same time, you might have something like this happen in the week, or this, or this, or this, which can freak you out. So this is, and that's going to happen a lot. So one thing that I like to do when that happens is go back to all of the things that we know affect the scale, right? So how much we're moving, how much carbohydrates we're eating, if it's more than normal, how much fiber we're having, if we're pooping on schedule, if we're going to bed on time, if we're not sleeping, if we're stressed, how much water we're having, and how much we're eating in general. So how much food we're eating in general. So all of those things are going to be important to just go through in your head when you're seeing the scale not do what you want. But then the most important thing is this. When in doubt, zoom out, okay? Because you'll be able to actually see a trend when you zoom out and you look at the week to week, or even if you have enough data and you've been doing this long enough, you'll be able to look month to month. Okay, so because you may have a week that actually isn't that impressive, but it doesn't mean you're going backwards, doesn't mean you've hit a plateau, just means that you got to tweak a couple of things, or maybe you look back on all the things that I mentioned before and you're like, oh, I'm not moving as much, I'm not drinking as much water as I was before, I have been pushing my portions a little bit higher, I have had a couple snacks here and there, I had a little bit more alcohol than normal, and it's like, okay, I can adjust those things next week and I should be just fine. So usually you're not as stuck as you think, but the biggest thing here is when in doubt, zoom out. And to understand that the scale is not meant to be it's not meant to be measured in a way where we look at it from a serious perspective. It's not meant to be looked at in the short term. So when I see a client's scale go up over a few days, I don't care at all. They'll be very frustrated. I understand why they are, but I explain to them what's kind of happening, and I, from a coaching perspective, am not worried at all. When I am concerned, it's when I see that weekly trend bumping up week to week. So it's all about that kind of medium-term trend or even longer-term trend month to month. That's what we want to watch. So if you're struggling with something like this when it comes to the scale, go back to all the stuff I mentioned here, and just remember when you're struggling with the scale, go back to all the things that I listed and all the things that can kind of play into the scale. It's not just fat. And then the next step is to remember that you want to, when in doubt, zoom out. Hope this helps.